Welcome to the Global WarWatch Network. We're jumping straight into something really heavy today, a headline that just stops you in your tracks. Massacre at Gaza Aid Crossing. 48 killed while waiting for food. Where is the humanity? That question, where's the humanity, just hangs there, doesn't it? So today we're going beyond the headlines. We're looking closely at the humanitarian crisis that's just spiraling in Gaza. We're really zeroing in on the awful situation around aid distribution, the violence people are facing just trying to get food, and, well, the incredibly tangled geopolitical mess behind it all. Our mission, really, is to unpack all the information coming in from recent reports, try to help you get a handle on the realities on the ground, and what it all means in the bigger picture. Okay, let's get into it. Let's start with the absolute basics, the hunger. It's reached a point where the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, the IPC, they're the main international group monitoring this, they basically said Gaza is facing a worst-case scenario famine. That's their official assessment. And they didn't stop there. They've warned about potential widespread death if something massive doesn't happen, like right now. When they say worst-case scenario famine, what does that actually look like for people day to day, beyond the jargon?
It means it's not some future threat anymore. It's happening now. It's translating into just heartbreaking reality every single day. And what's really disturbing is seeing it quantified. Like just recently, July 30th, 2025, 7 Palestinians, one of them a child, died from malnutrition-related causes. Just like that.
7 people.
Including a child.
Yeah. And that's not, a one-off. If you look at the bigger numbers from the Gaza Health Ministry, the picture gets even worse. They're reporting 89 children, 89, have died from malnutrition since the war started.
89 children.
And 65 Palestinian adults just since late June from related causes. So these aren't abstract statistics, right? These are real people, families being devastated because they can't get food, preventable deaths. It's horrifying to even hear those numbers.
Oh.
And yet you have this stark contrast. While you've got witnesses, UN agencies, aid groups, all saying people are starving, Israel's official stance is completely different. They deny there's any starvation happening in Gaza, flat out reject those accounts. And their reasoning, or part of it, seems to be that focusing on hunger actually hurts ceasefire talks, which seems counterintuitive. How do you even begin to square those two realities? Denial versus widespread reports of death from hunger.
Well, you can't really square them, can you? It's a huge disconnect. And these conflicting narratives, they highlight something really critical, a breakdown in accountability. When you deny the evidence coming from the ground, from aid workers, from the UN, it makes it incredibly difficult to mobilize effective relief.
Right.
It sort of creates this diplomatic blind spot, maybe. It diverts focus from the absolute urgent need, which is safe, open access for humanitarian aid, and it traps the whole conversation, doesn't it, in this cycle of claim and counterclaim instead of focusing on action.
Which brings us right back to that incident we opened with, the Zikim crossing. July 30th, at least 48 Palestinians killed, dozens more wounded, just waiting for food, at what's supposed to be the main entry point for aid to northern Gaza. The reports from the scene: chaos. Al-Saraya Field Hospital said they got over 100 dead and wounded from just that one event. And the Gaza Health Ministry warned the number could go even higher. Bodies were being taken everywhere. And initially there was this ambiguity. Not immediately clear who opened fire was the initial report. No immediate comment from the Israeli military. But then you had footage, AP footage, showing wounded people being carried off on wooden carts, crowds carrying flour sacks, just moments before disaster struck. It paints such a vivid, awful picture of desperation meeting violence.
It does. And the really disturbing part, if we connect the dots, is that Zikim wasn't some isolated freak event. This kind of violence around aid distribution. Unfortunately, it seems to be part of a pattern, an escalating one.
A pattern.
Yeah. Think about this. In the 24 hours leading up to the Zikim incident, reports say Israeli strikes and gunfire had already killed at least 46 other Palestinians, mostly, again, in crowds trying to get food.
46 more.
And if you look broader, since May, the numbers are staggering. Some reports estimate over 1,000 Palestinians killed by Israeli fire while trying to get aid. A lot of this happening near distribution sites run by this group called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, the GHF, which is Israeli-backed.
Over 1,000 people killed just trying to get food.
That's what some sources are reporting. And again, you have these conflicting accounts. Deeply conflicting. The Israeli military says its forces only fired warning shots at people getting too close to their positions. The GHF says its armed contractors use things like pepper spray, or, again, warning shots just for crowd control to stop dangerous crushing.
Okay.
But then you have witnesses, local health officials, the UN Human Rights Office. They directly attribute these deaths to Israeli fire. regardless of who fired precisely when. The sheer number of deaths near aid points tells you something is terribly wrong.
It tells you it's incredibly dangerous just to be hungry and try to get help.
Exactly. It raises huge questions about protecting civilians, about rules of engagement in these supposed aid zones.
And this leads right into the logistics of it all.
Ah.
Because even when aid does get approved to enter, getting it to people is, well, another nightmare. Israel says it's taken steps to ease the blockade. Kogat, that's the Israeli military body handling aid coordination, they reported over 220 trucks got into Gaza on one recent Tuesday, which sounds like a lot, maybe. But UN agencies say they need 500 to 600 trucks a day. That's the minimum.
Right.
And that higher number, 500, 600, they actually were getting that many during an earlier ceasefire. So 220 is
It's way below what's needed, far below.
it's a massive shortfall, just in terms of volume getting across the border.
And then, okay, let's say a truck gets in. What happens next? That's a whole different problem. The UN itself says it's struggling hugely to actually distribute the aid inside Gaza because law and order has just broken down in many areas. So trucks get inside, often into zones controlled by the Israeli military. And they're immediately mobbed by desperate crowds, people just taking what they can. It's not orderly.
Understandable desperation, but it means aid doesn't get distributed systematically.
Precisely. And those alternative systems, like the GHF we mentioned, reports say their operations have also been marred by violence, so that's not a safe solution either.
What about things like airdrops? You see those sometimes.
Yeah, airdrops have been tried, but
Okay.
honestly, they seem largely ineffective, sometimes even dangerous. Parcels often land in the wrong places, like areas people were told to evacuate from, so inaccessible.
Okay.
Or worse, sometimes they land in the Mediterranean Sea,
Yeah.
and you see these heartbreaking images, people swimming out, risking their lives in the water to try and grab drenched bags of flour.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we saw that over places like Deir Balah, Zawaida. It just shows the absolute, utter desperation. It's not a real solution.
It really puts the scale of the failure into perspective. To understand how we got here, though, we need to just briefly touch on the wider context. This didn't start yesterday. The current conflict ignited on October 7th, 2023. Hamas attacked southern Israel, killed around 1,200 people, took about 251 hostages. That was the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And today, the hostage situation is still ongoing. Around 50 are still held, is that right? With maybe 20 thought to be alive.
That's the current estimate, yes. Most others were released in earlier deals or ceasefires, but those remaining are a central issue, obviously.
And Israel's response to October 7th was this massive offensive in Gaza.
Exactly. And the casualty figures from that offensive are, well, they're staggering. Gaza's health ministry reports over 60,000 Palestinians killed.
60,000.
60,000. Now, it's crucial to note the ministry operates under the Hamas government, and its figures don't distinguish between fighters and civilians.
Right, that's an important distinction.
It is. But at the same time, the UN and most international bodies consider their data the most reliable available from inside Gaza, despite the affiliation, which tells you how hard it is to get independent verification.
Okay.
For its part, the Israeli military says it targets only militants and blames Hamas for civilian deaths, arguing they operate deliberately within civilian areas.
So again, starkly different narratives even on the casualty counts.
Very much so. And it reflects the deep political divides that make everything, including getting aid in, so incredibly difficult.
Meanwhile, diplomatically, efforts are ongoing, right? There's talk of envoys. Yeah, the U.S. Mideast envoy Steve Witkoff is reportedly heading to Israel this week, arriving Thursday for more talks. He's been leading the Trump administration's push to try and wind down this war. It's been going on for nearly 22 months now, and also get the hostages released.
Right.
So these high-level talks are happening. They're happening against this backdrop of just accelerating crisis, violence, hunger, failing aid systems.
Absolutely. And those diplomatic efforts, even with experienced envoys like Witkoff, they face enormous hurdles. The trust between the sides is just gone, completely broken down.
Yeah.
Add to that the humanitarian desperation, the constant violence, especially around aid. It makes any negotiation incredibly fragile. The hostage situation adds another layer of complexity, linking political demands directly to humanitarian needs.
It feels like a vicious cycle.
It is. The lack of aid makes people more desperate, which fuels instability and conflict, which then makes diplomacy and aid delivery even harder. It's all interwoven. Humanitarian crisis and political deadlock feeding each other.
So, thinking about all this, what should you, our listener, take away from this? How does this connect to the wider world? Maybe consider this. How the total collapse of trust, the political fighting, and just the raw, basic desperation for survival that we're seeing in Gaza. how that doesn't just shape this crisis, but how it fundamentally affects the chance for peace, for recovery in any conflict zone, anywhere. It's a really stark, tragic lesson, isn't it? About how vital humanitarian access and protecting civilians truly are, no matter how intense the conflict gets. Thank you for tuning in to the Global WarWatch Network. We really appreciate you spending your time with us on this difficult but important discussion. If you found this conversation informative, please do consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the Global WarWatch Network. It helps others find this content. We also really value your perspective. Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And you can join the conversation on social media too. All the links for that are right there in the description.